Hey everyone, and we're here with MJ. My name is Nadia Smirnova-Mierau, and we are agents of Cosmic Intelligence Agency, founded by Julija Simas, wonderful Julija Simas, founded a long time ago. And here's our, agents shirts. Yeah.
They're super secret squirrel shirts.
Exactly. So we love it. It's a great agency, and the mission of the agency to bring the knowledge of astrology to public, educate the public about cosmic influences on us. Currently, CIA, which is Cosmic Intelligence Agency, is on a mission to promote a new ebook with several agents as authors who wrote wonderful articles meant to enlighten people about what's coming in 2020 for us all around, personally and on a global level.
Yeah, it's a great book. It's got some really good pieces in there by some pretty cool authors. There's a nice mix, I think, of mundane, and for someone who's just tuning in and only knows their sun sign, that's a fancy word. You can use that at the next astrology cocktail party that you go to. You can flip that word around. You can say, I know about mundane astrology, but what you're really saying is, I know about astrology that talks about world events. That's what that is. And then just, the personal stuff too, like my moon's in Scorpio. What's the year going to bring to me? What's happening in the sky in Scorpio this year that might impact me personally? There's some of that in that book as well.
And it's good that you mentioned the word mundane, and a lot of people are confused about it. They think mundane means boring.
I know, right?
I just wanted to let you guys know mundane comes from the word monde, which is the world, right?
Mondial, comme en français, worldwide. Mondial.
World astrology. It's not boring astrology. It's actually one of the most exciting types of astrology.
Ed Tamplin. And his website is edtamplin.com. But people say, I've seen it go around, the Facebook groups, and that, mundane astrology is not for predicting. You can't predict with mundane. My eye, you can't, because Ed did, and he did it all the time, and he did it with pinpoint accuracy. So go Ed. But he's passed away, as I say, and we actually lost a francophone mundane astrologer this year, and I'm sorry, I've lost his family name. His first name is André, and the France is in mourning for his loss. And these people had real insight into, what, by looking at the past and finding patterns in the past, they were able to project those patterns forward and make an educated, scientific, educated guess about the kinds of challenges that we would be facing and that we will be facing. But there is some of that in this book. So I think I took a page out of Ed's book. I had to go and used everything he taught me and put together a piece on what I call the Martin Luther sky.
Yeah, wonderful. And that brings me to ask you some questions. And before I ask you some questions, I just wanted to explain who MJ is to those who don't know MJ. MJ is, on one hand, an agent 121 of the Cosmic Intelligence Agency, and I'm an agent 777. And but outside of that, MJ is a professional astrologer for way over 30 years. She started in the 80s, and she is involved in organizations and conferences. She's very much involved in the world astrology community. She does a lot of work. She's extremely bright and intelligent, and she has a lot to offer to astrology community and her clients. And she is a writer, a speaker, and so many things. So the piece that she wrote for this book, which is called ASTRO VISION into the 2020 and beyond, that piece has to do with mundane predictions, how we predict, and how you can look at the planetary constellations, planetary combinations that coming up for us and predict things by comparing it to the very similar combinations of planets from the past. Her article in the book is called Using the Past to Predict the Future. And after I read that piece, I thought, wow, I knew about mundane predictions. I'm not into that field of astrology. I just kind of benefit from reading other people's work. But once I read that article, I thought, wow, I think I can be a mundane astrologer if I wanted to, because it seems easy and it seems exciting.
Well,
So,
it was Ed who lit the fire in me. He very much lit that torch inside me. So I met him at the SOTA conference, which was Donna Van Tone's conference. Of course, she's passed away, so we don't have SOTA anymore. That said, this year in 2020, we will have the one of SOTA's babies, which is the conference called Northern Stars, northern-stars.ca. And Franco, who used to do all the shenanigans at the SOTA conference, will be doing the shenanigans at our conference. So, and it's weird because it was supposed to be in September, and I won't bore you with the details, but it got bumped into October, very close to the SOTA weekend. And I just feel the fingers of a certain Donna Van Tone in the mix here, and I find this most delightful. But in terms of mundane, you have to be good at history, I think, to be an excellent mundane astrologer. And I'll confess, I'm not an historian. That's probably one of the few areas I would say that I'm weak in. So if I wanted to do this with anger, I would need to really get good at my history. That said, I did take the piece of history that I was studying and I monstered it. I learned that piece of history backwards and forwards. And it was crazy to see how the skies were connecting up with what was happening on the ground, both in terms of countries and in terms of individuals' lives.
right. And with that said, I want to dig in a little bit in what you're writing about and how it relates to the today's day and what's coming up. First of all, if you're an astrologer or an astrologer student, those who are listening to us, you already know that we have a major conjunction of Saturn and Pluto happening in the sky right now, and Jupiter is following that conjunction and about to hit it also. And this has gotten all astrologers excited because that signifies a major change. Now, what kind of change? We have to figure this out. And this is how astrologers and mundane astrology operate. In order for them to figure out and try to predict what kind of change is happening, they have to look into the past, into find the times in the history where the same planets had the same configuration in the same sign, and then see the events that transpired and try to make sense of them and try to translate to what may transpire now or this year or in the next few years. And this was MJ did. She looked into the story of Martin Luther.
The original Martin Luther.
She looked into the history of Martin Luther into the 1500s, and that's when the same Saturn and Pluto and the same Jupiter were in the same sign as they are right now in Capricorn. And I would like to find out, MJ, from you, give me like a scope of, in a few sentences, what happened to Martin Luther at the time, what kind of changes he was pushing for, and how it is translating in today's world 500 years later.
Thanks. So the first thing I should say is that we have been waiting now 500 years since this man was born and had the stuff that happened to him. But even 500 years later, we're still feeling the impacts of his choices. So we're not out of the influence of the old conjunction. Even we just had the new conjunction. So that's how powerful these changes are. They're going to last for another 500 years. So first of all, I didn't know it was Martin Luther. Remember, I'm a crappy student of history. I don't know my history. So you could, there's something in research we call sample bias. Or, so if you're looking for a particular answer, you might ignore data that doesn't suit your answer, and you only take the answer you're looking for. I was tabula rasa. I had no idea what happened in the history, so I couldn't select dates that would suit my story because I didn't know. So I actually took Solar Fire. I have so many wonderful programs, Maestro app, I have Solar Fire, I have of course the lovely series program, I have Planet Dance, I have, like, I'm a geek, so I collect them. But I do like this feature in Solar Fire where you can actually tell the computer, look, I want Saturn in Capricorn, I want Pluto in Capricorn, I want Uranus in Taurus, and I want you to just run the numbers for me and tell me, when were those in the sky, like in that condition, like that, starting since 0 AD, go. And it goes boop, 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 and it pops up different possibilities. So the closest sky I was able to find was the Martin Luther sky. So it wasn't that I selected that and then studied it, it was that the sky matched the sky, and so it was selected for me by the computer. So then I had to go and find out, who's this Martin Luther guy anyway? What did he do? Because remember, not a good historian. So I found out that he was a big disappointment to his mom and dad because they had raised him to be a lawyer. They were looking to be well taken care of in their old age, because in those days we didn't have pensions or Social Security. So our Social Security was our children. So they were not fools, and they raised this kid up and sent him to law school, and they were rubbing their hands with glee, thinking, this is it, this is our fortunes made. And didn't that little bugger go off and join the monastery? So he didn't like being a lawyer, and off he went to become a monk. And you would think that the story would end there, but no. Around that time, the St. Paul's Basilica in Rome was being built, and we're talking that long ago. And the Pope was a naughty boy, and even though he had buckets and buckets of money, he actually was squeezing people for more money to build the basilica. And the game went like this. It was called an indulgence. So if you were rich and you'd been a bad boy or a bad girl, instead of having to do your Hail Marys or your Our Fathers or whatever it is that the church told you you had to do, you could come in, pay a certain amount of money, get a pat on the head, and sent home. And this was called indulgence. And Martin Luther was mad, man. He was screaming, it's not fair. He was not happy about that. So he wrote something called the 95 Thesis, which is just a big hunk of parchment. Back in the day, parchment was very expensive. So to have a great big piece of parchment, that was, he really needed to want to write that down. I'm just saying. So he wrote all this stuff down on a piece of parchment, and he pinned it to the church door, because that's where everybody came to worship on Sunday. So that was the closest thing to like Facebook or Twitter that they would have had in those days, would have been the church door. And here's the interesting bit. Somebody had tried something similar a couple of decades before. I found scant reference to him, and in fact can't even remember his name, and I think that's the point, because they just grabbed him, the church grabbed him and lynched him, and that was the end of it. So the real question isn't how did this happen, or why did Martin do this? The real question is, why wasn't he just lynched? Why didn't he just get killed and we're done, and the church has its power and everything goes along the same way as it did before? And the answer is rather interesting. It's to do with a gentleman by the name of Gutenberg. Because although the Gutenberg press had been invented about 50 years before, a really cool novel innovation hit that year that had just blown the doors off of it. It was like Twitter. So they invented this thing called movable type. So instead of having to carve an entire page and just print it, now you could move the letters around. You could create a page of text in a short period of time, and you could send it to print for a lot less money, with a lot less effort, and you could do it very, very quickly. And these two things dovetailed. And when I say dovetailed, means comes together with no effort. And in astrology, we have a special name for that. We call it a trine. When you have a trine, 120 degrees, things get together with perfect ease, and they support each other. And so we have this conjunction in Capricorn, this revolutionary thought, beautifully supported by this wonderful invention, okay, which is the Taurus, Uranus in Taurus, the invention. Okay, so it was quite fun to see that and to understand the symbolism of that. It made me quite excited, quite joyful. And I kept digging. And so this poor man, he went through quite a bit of difficulty. People don't give up power easily. Okay, so the church was not happy about this, and so they tried every different thing to get this flea, you could say, off of the back of the dog. They wanted him gone. And eventually they excommunicated him. It took them about 2 years. But you see, here's the cool part. His parents had sent him to law school. So a normal priest would not have been in the position to defend himself against the church. But as fate would have it, Mr. Martin Luther had been perfectly prepared by his parents for this very important job, even they didn't realize what they were doing. So he was making the mark of Zorro on all these documents and dotting the I's and crossing the T's and getting away with a lot of shenanigans because, first of all, he had the truth on his side. He was speaking truth with a capital T. And secondly, because he was a delight. His logical, his argument development was so beautiful, you know, for those who enjoy logic, that the people who were in these ecclesiastic courts took delight in him because he was so good at what he was, at his arguments, you see. So they wouldn't just sort of smack him down for no reason. They wanted to hear the flow of his logic because it was like aesthetically joyful for them. Even they had to tell him no at the end, but they enjoyed the rebuttal. They enjoyed the interplay. It was because he was so well versed at what he was doing.
Interesting.
So the law
Interesting. So his charm, his wit helped him to ultimately win the battle against a massive, rigid entity, which is church.
and people kind of resonated with, I'm a Druid, and in the Druid understanding of the world, there's something called the sacred truth. This is the idea that you're speaking the truth, not because you're trying to make money, not because you're trying to get your company famous. You're speaking the truth because it is true and you must speak it. And there's this fundamental cleanliness or clarity. Think of it like a perfectly clear crystal. And so when the truth is spoken in this crystalline way, that it galvanizes change. There's an old Druid story about how, you know, Kavod speaks these words of truth, and a castle, which is falling down the mountainside, stops falling and goes back up and puts the stones back where it was before. Now, of course, that's, you know, a story, but the message behind the story is a truth cleanly spoken can undo a powerful wrong. Right? And I think that was Martin Luther's gift, is that he didn't have a dog in the fight. He wasn't trying to make money. He didn't have a business to promote. He wasn't trying to get to be king of somewhere. He really just was upset at the illogic of the situation and wanted to get it sorted out. And now we have a young person these days who's doing something like that. And I haven't had a chance to dig further, but I invite our listeners to grab this torch that I've lit and run forward with it. Take a look at Greta's chart. She's big supporting her passion is anti-pollution, and she's trying to get the powers of the world to stop polluting and to start thinking about their children and their grandchildren. So a totally different topic, but the shape of it, the grand shape of it, she's speaking truth to power, but she's speaking truth to power not because she's going to make any money, but because it must be said. So a lot along the lines of our Martin Luther.
So young, and she will be heard. You know, for them, it's wonder that she's not presenting any threat to them, so they will be hearing her because she's so young and innocent. And
it's been an interesting, when I do get snippets, it's been quite interesting to observe how much trouble she can cause with just her voice. I think she's hitting some nerves. It's quite interesting. So in these skies, when we look at these skies and we look at the same shape where we have the Saturn, and we have, now it's already passed, we have the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. And a lot of my friends who are, I would say, like we in Ireland, we'd say fae, but the idea being that they're very, the veil between this space and whatever's out there, for them it's very thin, and so most of them haven't been sleeping. They've been like not able to sleep, they've been grinding their teeth, they've been stressed to the nines, they've been, you know, really having a tough time. And after the 12th of January, they all said, oh, I finally got a night's sleep, you know, I finally calmed down. So it's not like it's over, but you could say the Big Bang has already happened. And now, because remember, this is a 500-year cycle, now we start to slowly see it unroll. Okay?
Right.
Now,
And
Martin took 2 years to become excommunicated. So, I mean, we're looking at least 2 years before we see any major implosions. But once Jupiter gets to that conjunction point, which will be on the spring equinox, I think actually, I'm not a financial astrologer at all, but I think if I had stocks, I think I would have bonds. I think I would move them from stocks to bonds just until we get to May or June. It's my opinion. You
right.
can't really rely on me. I'm not a financial astrologer, but that's just based on the looking at the past to predict the future. I don't have any stocks, but if I did, I would be switching them over.
And I agree with you. I'm not a financial astrologer either, but I remember hearing financial astrologers giving us warnings for a couple of years now about 2020 and this major alignment of Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter in one spot and one sign as a major change, major computer reboot, cycles closing down and new cycles opening up. So, and they were warning, to just reboot your finances, pull out from the market, wait out, and then go back in after it's done. So that's what we're suggesting.
So I got it right. You're telling me, because that was just kind of my 2 cents worth.
According to their predictions, reading, we're talking about it.
Well, if Bill reckons it's true, it's probably true. He's pretty good.
Right. So from what I understand from your article and from what you're saying is that there is a sense right now about something needing a major change, and it's very down to earth, to the ground. Powers, maybe I sense real estate needs to be moved around. A lot of people see that happening in their lives.
Yeah.
The government needs to change. So what I wanted to ask you, just to make it easy for people to understand who listen to us, about the current tendencies of the planets and demand for change that these planets present. It is my understanding from research and study in astrology that when big heavy hitters like Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter, Neptune, Uranus, if they get into conjunctions between themselves, that typically symbolizes the end of a huge cycle and the beginning of a new huge cycle. So we have one 20-year cycle, which is Jupiter and Saturn.
Yeah.
And we have they're being conjunct right now, or getting close to the conjunction as we speak, which means the story of the past 20 years is ending and a new one beginning. And the Jupiter and Saturn typically has to do with businesses, plural, money, with the real estate also. And it translates into not just world events, but it translates into people's personal lives. So please please observe what's happening in your life right now. Your soul is craving big changes. Everybody who I observe around me, and myself included, going through big, down-to-earth, involved changes, and people running out of steam. It's hard. Saturn makes it hard going through these changes. As hard as it is, it's actually very good because it's going to give people a new start. Now, Saturn and Pluto, I understand from your article that Saturn, Pluto in Capricorn, that's a 500-year cycle.
So right? What I did was I wanted Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn, but I wanted Uranus to be trine in Taurus. I wanted to see that specific shape in the sky, and that's why it took me back 500 years.
I got you. Okay, so it's you were looking for planets that would be four planet cycle, as a matter of fact, if I understand. It's Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, and Uranus have the same configuration as they are right now. So that's why we get the 500 years. This situation happens once in 500 years. That's
now there's an exciting difference though, which is helpful. So the nodes of the moon are like fingers that point to what's going to happen.
right.
So in Martin Luther's time, we all have heard the story that he kind of broke the churches into, he didn't mean to, he was complaining about one specific thing, but that's the stone that dropped into the pond, but the ripples went a very long way. And what it actually did over the 500 years, so it broke the church into many different smaller churches. And it gave the power that was all in the church, it gave the power to many different people. So it created a kind of fertile bed for democracy. And from this, the idea of democracy rose, and we had democracy in our countries. So it started with the church, but it went into banking, it went into the government, it went into how we run our schools, it went into every different part of our lives, but it started with the church. And the nodes were in, no surprise, it was in Sagittarius and Gemini. Sagittarius is the outer trappings of the church, and Gemini is the printing press.
Printing press, and also
like it's words, disseminating words. Printing press, Twitter, internet, whatever is the third house, right? It's the gossip, the place you put the news, the church door, whatever. But this time we have the same sky, but the nodes are in Capricorn and Cancer. So Cancer is the earth. Cancer is the mama. Cancer is the people, the will of the people, but it's the connection between the people and the earth. And Capricorn is the oligarchy. It's the people in power. It's the 1%. It's oil and gas as well, although Ed explained me that Neptune is to do with oil and gas a lot, with the planet Neptune. But Capricorn is any place where you have to dig the rocks to get something out, so minerals and things like that. That's all Capricorn. But it's also any kind of bastion of power. It has to completely change or it's going to die. So it's funny because, not to tell tales out of school, but without naming names, it's been fun being involved with the various astrological organizations because they too are bastions. They too are establishments. And if they change, they'll be fine. And if they don't change, then they may be no more, a bit like the dinosaur. So it's going to be kind of a fun 20 years.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch. So we should, as the we have a front row seat, so to speak, to watch a big show of change.
Yeah.
But not only that, we experiencing changes in our life, but we get to see how big entities will be forced to change, or they will change.
Or they'll fade because they won't fit in the new order. But we too, individually, we can look at where this 22nd degree of Capricorn is in our own charts, right? So if it's in your first house, maybe you're going to get a makeover, or you're going to have, an experience which is going to change the way you relate to your body. Or if it's in the second house, maybe you're going to sort out your finances, get yourself out of debt, or something like that.
Yes.
Third house, maybe you're going to buy a cool new car, or maybe you're going to change your whole opinion about cars, and maybe you're going to get a bicycle. It's going to be a radical change in the third house of how you communicate. Maybe you'll go back and take a different kind of schooling than you ever took before. It's third house stuff, right? And so on, all the way around the houses. So it's not just about the big hitters. We individuals, we can use this information to see how we can improve our own lives.
And and I believe that if this whole configuration in Capricorn falls into angle houses for people, which is 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th, that will resonate with their lives stronger.
Much so, yeah, absolutely. The cardinal houses, no, you're spot on. Angular houses.
If it is in the 1st house, then this means that it is for me in the 1st house, and my rising sign is a Capricorn ruled by Saturn, and a Saturn with Pluto in the 1st house, then it feels like this configuration hits you hard, and you have to do a lot of hard things in your life. But you know that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Makes you stronger. it'll be fun for you when that Saturn goes to 0 Aquarius.
It will be a major relief, I would imagine and expect. But at
Yeah.
that time, you know, this is the time to make serious changes in your life that will make your life easier. What I know about Pluto and Saturn together. So what they're doing in your first or second or whatever house, they do two things, two important things. They reorganize your life and they make your life more efficient, streamlined, and they rid you from things that no longer serve. Make your life clean and well structured.
Yep, that's right.
Optimal and efficient. That's
It is
what we're doing. Nothing to be feared. It's all
nothing. No, it's definitely not to be feared. First of all, we're stuck with it. So I'm a pragmatist. Since we're stuck with it, let's make lemonade. You know, let's have fun with it. Let's do good things with it because it's here. So let's use it. That's my thinking.
And one thing you said in your article that was interesting, the way you said it, is when Jupiter is moving into that stellium, it gets the ball rolling. I don't know, I don't remember how you phrased it, but things start moving because
Yeah, well, because we're talking geocosmic time, like, you know, if it's you and me, we're doing solar return, something like that. So we're going to use Mercury as our like timekeeper. But there's two different kinds of time. There's the watch time, which is Mercury, but then there's the cycles of the seasons, and that's Jupiter. Jupiter is the big timekeeper. So when we're looking on geologic time, it's logical to use the big timekeeper for the big, slow-moving, you know, things. So yeah, this is true. When on the spring equinox this year, at the exact moment, I'm not even kidding, I think it's 10 minutes before the spring equinox, Jupiter lines into exact position in that place. And then of course we know the spring equinox is the astrological year marker, so that's going to carry whatever energies are in play, that's going to carry for a whole 12 months at least.
I feel the air of change. I love it. It's difficult, but I love it.
Well, you know, it's like you say, which the things that don't kill us make us stronger. It appeals to my Scorpio moon.
Oh, wonderful. I love Scorpio moon. Those are my best friends usually.
So yeah, you do like a difficult challenge.
I do. Listen, Scorpios are, you know, Scorpios by moon or by the sun. It's, these are, we have to make another video.
All about the Scorpio moons. But we could do a big shout out to Julija, I think, at this point. You know, she's a force for good, and all the way down there. And I don't know how she does it while standing on her head. Sorry, I'm in Canada. I had to go there. It's, you know, because we're both colonials. You know, we like to pick on each other. It's like being siblings. But no, she does a lot of really good things. And the shot, she's the shot heard around the world, because there she is 8 time zones away, and she's influencing what we're doing here today. So go, Julija. It's a pretty cool thing she's doing. And the book it's not that much. I think it's under $10. And yeah, it's $9.99 or something. It's a very good price for really, if you were buying that as, say, a university text for the same number of articles of the same caliber, oh my God, you'd be paying like 40 or 50 bucks, right?
Right, and the book is well written. There are several astrologers there who put their knowledge, their content into this article, and it's very deep. So $9 for so much mind-blowing information, where people spend a long time researching it and bringing it back for you to read. So $9 is nothing. So it's not about $9 to me. It's about it's those who are interested who's going to reach out, grab this book, and if it's $9, $20, or $0, it doesn't matter. It's about those people who want and crave that knowledge, want to learn astrology, want to learn what's going to be happening in the 2020, want to be in tune with cosmos. This is what Julija is all about. She put in her effort for a decade or longer to bring this sense of attunement with the big cosmos to us. So to
And
enlighten us
it's
that,
practically, it has a lot of practical applications. For
right.
instance, anybody who runs their own business, or anybody who's like if you're a supplier to a business, wouldn't it be helpful to have a heads up about trends, which way the finances are going to go? Like, to me, my friend Ingi, she's just finished her stint as the head of the Edmonton Astrological Association, and she ran a tooling business, you know, where you make tools and you basically to help the oil and gas industry in Alberta over the years. And it's a very man-centered place, I'm embarrassed to tell you. So to be a woman in business is challenging at the best of times, but she was able to outperform all of the men because she did astrology and she looked ahead the kinds of techniques that are being offered for very low price in this book. And she was able to know when not to buy supplies and when to buy supplies. And so she would be buying supplies 3 months before the market would come back up, and she'd be ready to go and have everything made. And then just as the money was coming available, she could ship. And the rest of the guys were scrambling around trying to buy the supplies to get started, and they were 3 months behind her. So I
Yeah.
guess my pitch for this book is, why would you want to be like those guys? Wouldn't you want to be like Ingi? Wouldn't you want to be the first guy out the door because you know what the trends are going to be?
I would. I
So
said so. I mean, you talking about basically people learning these techniques and doing their own predictions, but what about they are new to this and they would want to get that sort of advance notice from an astrologer?
so it's in the
So I
book.
understand that.
You've already written it. It's for the next 10 years. You don't have to learn it and do it yourself. You just read the book. It's all there.
But what I'm trying to ask you is that if somebody who is listening to us is interested to get heads up on their business, would you be the one to go to as an astrologer who can counsel on business and future of their business?
I'm one, but we have in the east of Canada, we have something called the Atlantic Professional Astrologers Association, APAA, and it's like a Better Business Bureau. So if you any of the astrologers at the APAA that are deemed to be qualified would be an acceptable choice. So certainly I can, but I love to big up my colleagues as well, and also, you know, we have some good organizations who are working hard to kind of create some kind of certifications around these things to give the public a sense of reassurance that they are getting a qualified professional. So ISA's one and shares one.
We'll add the websites
Pardon me?
reference. We'll add all the websites as a reference for those.
Okay, that'd be great. And I'll send you the ones for APAA and the Northern Stars Conference as well. And if anyone's sort of anywhere from Toronto East, we're within range of you. And we also accept members from the kind of main US main area, Cape Cod area, because there's really no actual groups at that place. Like, we're the only thing they've got in CGR. I think the closest one is Cape Cod, which is quite far south for them. So we always invite them also.
And
So I
sounds
think if you're looking for a good astrologer, gosh, worldwide, what would be my suggestion? Go to astro.com and look at who's doing the articles there. If you're into traditional astrology, I would go to skyscript.co.uk. That's Deborah Holding's site. It's a good site. In Canada, we have the Canadian Astrology Network. So that's a place that you can go for actual professionals. What do you think? What would you recommend? There must be stuff in the States as well, eh?
Of course, and I'm gonna think about what to recommend, but I just wanted to maybe I'm sure people can find good astrologers, and there are astrologer listings and CIA agents actually.
Oh my God. I mean, let's talk about the CIA website, shall we? It's fantastic. It's full of articles, there are videos. It's a kind of a community too. So there's a kind of a sense of commonality and hanging out. People are very generous with their knowledge. That if you ask a question, they're going to answer it. So there is a Facebook group that you can join.
And each of the agent
It's
is
not snooty. That's what I want to say. It's not snooty. It doesn't have sort of, I'm a better astrologer than you are. It doesn't do any of that. Not that anybody else does, but it's very, very straight up. It's kind of like, hey, glad to see you. Have a beer, pull up a chair. Like, that's what I really appreciate about the CIA. It's very, very Aussie rules, I'd say. Yeah.
excellent. And these astrologers who are agents, we know them and we highly recommend them for any type of questions. You can find information where to find them. Their email addresses all on CIA website.
Yep. No, it's, and Julia's to be commended for that because she sets the tone for that. Go, Julia.
So MJ, this was great. Your article is wonderful. And if anybody wants to read more and read that article in detail, it's fascinating. I have to read it again. And the link for the book is gonna be under this video.
Fantastic.
To download buy the book. And, and think of it this way. It's all about bringing the knowledge to you and, paying $9. It's supporting the venture that Julia Simas is on about enlightening the people. The content in the book, all these articles, all that knowledge is a lot more than what you're paying for. It's a lot more.
It really is. And you're joining by getting involved, you're joining a very cool community. Come on. It's the CIA. What are you going to do?
Right. All right. Thank you, MJ. It was wonderful. Thank you for speaking.
Thank you for your lovely interview.